Alright, chapter 17 references the fabric of life. Man's mind stretched to a new idea never goes back to its original dimensions. Oliver Wendell Holmes. As he stood at flight deck of the young lieutenant watched the jet plane skid out of control onto the aircraft carrier, a swing wing slashing out, nearly cutting a half man standing on a few feet, cutting in a half a man standing a few feet away. The only thing that pulled him through the horror of the moment was the booming voice of his commander officer shouting, "Somebody get a broom, sweep these guts off the deck, there's no more time to think." He had to respond immediately. His fellow crewmen swept their comrade body parts off the landing strip. In an instant, the 19-year-old George Bush had no choice but to learn to deal with the carnage of war. It would be merely he would recite often and describe the shocks of violent death and necessity to be able to respond. Another experience shaped the life of the bombing mission. He flew not long after the tragedy of the ship decks. He went down and sent a bomb radio tower on a small island in South Pacific. Chichi-Jima was a prisoner of war facility run by the infamous Japanese officer Mataba, who Bush, his crew, knew had committed the brutal war crimes against his prisoners, such unbelievable atrocities as cannibalizing some of the men, putting their remains into soup for meat, and feeding it to other prisoners, and telling them afterward that they had eaten human flesh. As young George Bush approached the target, he absolutely resolved to isolate this madman by destroying the only tool of communication, a radio tower. He approached the bombing running. He was hit by an enemy attack. Smoke filled the cabin, but he was determined to hit his mark. In the final seconds, he managed to release the bomb, smashing the target, destroying the antenna. Instantly, he gave the orders to eject, and he turned the plane back out to sea when his turn came, a bailout didn't take place as planned. His body was slammed against the tail aircraft, tearing a portion of the parachute and grazing his head. The damaged parachute fundamentally only partially in the breaking of his fall, but just before he hit the water, he cut himself loose. Struggling back to the surface, the blood oozing from his head wound, he desperately groped for his little life raft, and he found that the dragging himself into, he saw that the water food canister had been destroyed upon impact with the aircraft's tail. To make matters worse, the current was slowly pulling him directly toward the beach of the island he had just bombed. Can you imagine what they would do to him? As his rafts were drawn closer and closer to the shore and his fear grew, suddenly he began to do something in the water. He first thought it was his imagination, realized it was his periscope. He was about to become a prisoner of the Japanese. But as the huge submarine began to lift out of the water in front of him, he realized it was Finback, an American submarine he rescued, but only in the time to have endure yet more peril upon picking up Bush. Finback dropped quickly into the enemy boat's approach and began dropping depth charges on the submarine. All Finback could do was dive and remain totally still. He was unable to do anything but call upon the faith and prayer of the explosives would not destroy them. George Bush not only survived this experience, but also completed many other successful bombing missions, returning a war hero. He said that his days upon the submarine were some of the most important of his life's days. He began to think of the destiny and who he was and why he was put on Earth. What role the experience playing with a simple shaping the chapter and identifying destiny of George Bush? Clearly, the big became the fabric from which many of the core belief values would be cut. The fabric I call the reference experience. The experience would be part of the whole guide him more than 40 years later becoming president of the United States. That's what helped him to mold his beliefs and sense the certainty that a good must stand up to evil. It gave him the sense of confidence that gave his all. Didn't give up. He was produced with the resolve of the desire against all odds. How do you think the references shaped the actions almost 5 decades later as he sat in the Oval Office contemplating his response to Saddam Hussein's unprovoked invasion-friendly Kuwait? If we understand why people do what they do, review for the most significant, impactful reference experience of the lives certainly gives us a clue. Reference fifth element of the person master system really provides essence for the building blocks for beliefs, the rules, values, their claim from our master system is molded. There's no doubt that a person who has experienced the triumph of the tremendous adversity clave with a strong reference for which build a consistent level of confidence with the belief in them, faith in themselves and others' capacity to overcome challenges. Larger number, the greater quality of the reference, so the greater the potential level of the choices. Larger number, the greater quality of the reference enables us to more effectively evaluate what things mean, what we can do. The reason I say potential choice is with reference within, while references provide us foundational ingredients for our beliefs, we often organize our references in way to strengthen us. For example, a young man has to throw in his confidence skill on the football field. When he enters for the history class, he may feel some of the same sense of certainty that he could help to maximize all his potential as well within class. He does this by facing his foe across the line of the gridiron. He approached the football with the same attitude of defeat and with doubt as he did in the history class. Is incredible. In fact, he became incredibly ineffective. What determines which our references use clearly the emotional state we were in radically impacts the file, which memories, emotion, file, feeling, sensation that were stored and are available to us when we were in fearful state. But the only references associated with the fearful sensation past seem to come to mind when we find our references, find ourselves caught up in a loop, fearing and leading reference fear, leading the multiplied fear. If we were feeling hurt by someone, we tend to open the file, remember everything other experience, whether the person hurt us, rather than changing our state, remembering how this person really feels about us, remembering times when they have been loving to us. Therefore, state we're in all determine how much fabric is available. The creation of the quality of life with another factor besides the state is to have an expanded reference system, one that can clearly add to our level of understanding it, as so what is impossible we're capable of no matter challenges may arise. There are no doubt references one of the most important elements of the decision-making process that clearly shape not only what we do, but how we feel and how we become. Contrast Saddam Hussein's reference experience with George W. Bush is we know that Saddam's father physically abused him. His uncle taught him to nurture a grudge and hate English overlords, while Bush rewarded heroism. Saddam's role model were those who learned to control others, murders, and propaganda. Over a period of time, about 15 to 20 years, Saddam repeatedly attempted to oust the leader of the Iraq, killing anyone who got in his way, resolved that does not perceive setbacks, regardless of how bloody as failure, how he came to believe. In the long run, he always succeeded. This belief, by the way, allowed him to prevail even after the defeat in the Persian Gulf War. By the age of 42, he eliminated all his opponents and taken control of Iraq. To many, Saddam is a master. People often wonder how Iraq can support him. The answer is that Iraq perceives Saddam Hussein as one who helped turn things around in their country. He helped them provide better housing, education, and so on. Iraqis says he is a hero. Besides, all Iraqis from this age of 4 to 5 are taught that he is a hero. His image is displayed everywhere, and they see only the best side of the nationally controlled television. Did Saddam Hussein become the murderer purely because of the reference of the being abused as a child? Far from it. Many people have emerged very similar reference experience with the compassionate and sensitive people who, because of their pain, would never allow anyone else to abuse around them. Many of these people strive to help others. Could someone else have then the same ship with George Bush, been devastated by the death of a friend and used for the reference for belief that life is not life worth living, that war is never justified, yet once again is not our reference but the interpretation of them. We organize them and clearly determine our beliefs. Which references play the largest role of the life's experience with all the dependence we get with a reinforced for Saddam. It was rewarded by cutting a wide swath of murder, destruction, en route to the leadership of the country. George Bush was reinforced constantly for the focus of the doing right thing, contributing and helping to those in need. The reinforcement helped to create a foundation for very different destinies for these men's lives. What are references? References are all experiences of your life that have recorded within your nervous system. Everything you've seen, heard, touched, tasted, or smelled is stored away inside of the giant file of the cabinet of your brain. Some reference of the picked with it consciously, with the other unconsciously. Some result of the experience you have had yourself, with the other consistent with the information you've heard from others. And all references, like all human experience, become somewhat distorted to leave with it generalized as recorded with them with the nervous system. In fact, you also have the references that things have never happened. Anything you ever imagine in your mind has also stored in brain as memory. Many of these references are organized and support beliefs. As you learn in Chapter 4, belief is nothing but the feeling of certainty about what something means. If you believe that you are intelligent, it's because you've activated the certain reference to support the feeling of certainty. Maybe you have the experience successfully taking mental challenges such as acting a test or running a business well. All references experience as table legs to support the idea, and tabletop that you are intelligent. You have enough references within us to back up an idea that we want. We're confident that we're weak, that we care for the worst, or that we're selfish. The key is to expand the reference available within your life. Consciously seek out expand your sense of who you are and what you're capable of, as well as organize your references in empowering ways. The knowledge of the world is only acquired in the world and not in the closet. Lord Chesterfield. Not long ago, I heard about a man who was had found $35,000 cash in a bag on the street. He instantly sought out and returned it to the owner. Everyone who had heard the story wanted to congratulate this man, but he sheeted away from the media, refused to be filmed. He adamantly insisted that returning the money was the right and only thing he could do, and turn out of the money was the life savings of a 68-year-old woman. Throughout this one act, the problem saved her financial life, yet refused to take credit. Why? Clearly, the reference of the past helped to develop the belief that the taking credit for doing the opposite for the right thing would be totally inappropriate. He didn't decide to avoid recognition on him. He had a sense of certainty that only the life references could create. Think your references, but but those considered to be good and bad. A giant bolt of a fabric woven from experience. While the other elements of the master system you state in the question value of the belief the cut pattern of the fabric enables you to make the decision about what to do with your life. You have an inexhaustible supply of references that can be designed any way you wish. Each day you're adding to supply. Your important measure for the person intelligent is the way which they use the fabric reference. Do you craft the curtain to hide behind it, or do you fashion a magic carpet that you will carry to unequal heights? You consciously dig through your life experiences, pulling all those memories that empower you most on a consistent basis. As you learn in Chapter 4, probably one of the most valuable things for the reference dues for us is to provide a feeling of certainty. Without them, we would live our whole lives afraid or in doubt. We wouldn't be able to function. We distribute the book, supplied, alleviated, floated away, and came to rest 5 feet in front of you. The only reason you would feel any fear is that if you have no references for it, you have no idea of how to interpret what it means. Why will a baby reach into a dirty ashtray, pull out a cigarette butt, and chew on it? Isn't because they don't have the references to tell them it's not good for them. Of course, some adults still haven't figured this one out. Let me ask you again, how do you use your references? You consciously interpret the ways that empower you and the ways that support achievements of your goals, or does your brain automatically latch into individual experiences where they're not supported by beliefs? Like everybody's out to get me every time I try anything, I'm getting knocked down, I don't deserve to be loved. The way of the references will determine how we feel because whether something is good or bad are all based on where we're comparing it to. The businesswoman checked for the hotel room, whether nothing she thinks of the room is nice based on her past references. I guarantee that it took someone in the Eastern Europe that got them a room simply budget motel here in the United States. You would find that they are thrilled thinking that these were top room rated accommodations. Sometimes we lose perspective of the good and bad are merely based on our references. Date with the density, one of my favorite learning events, but because I am consistently seeing how many people's references are being used to shape them of behavior and pair. As part of an in-depth questionnaire partnership, fill out my before seminar. There's 5 experiences they feel they have shaped their entire lives. What they have doing is shared with me something of the most powerful reference in it, and amazes me how many different means they take from the same references. Some people have been raped, sexually abused, and abandoned, so they have to come to broken and impoverished homes. Yet, some people interpret these experiences in a way that helps them form a belief that their life is not worth living. Otherwise, uses it to motivate themselves to study, expand, grow, to share, and more sensitive. It's true, Saddam Hussein was abused as a child, but so was Oprah Winfrey. Here's a woman who was raped, violently mistreated in her youth, yet today she touches millions of lives daily with her television show. Simply sharing her own experience, she helped people to help heal some of the wounds of their past. Millions of Americans feel close to there because she knows, she understands, she has reference pain just like you do. We lift ourselves by our thought. We climb up our vision of ourselves. Orson Sweet Martin. References are not limited to actual experiences. Imagination itself is the source of reference. Remember to bet Roger Bannister in 4 Minute Mile. No one ever believed it physically possible that human beings would run a mile less than 4 minutes. He created with his own experience certainty through imagined references. He visualized over and over again breaking the 4 minute mile, hearing, feeling him break over the barrier until the race. Soon he had so many reference legs that he felt certain he would succeed. As certainly the other people accomplishing the task was impossible. When he needed to remember the imagination 10 times the potent with our willpower, because the Bannister was able to the imagination with the legs supporting the tabletop, certainly he was able to produce the result of the unheard throughout the human history. Imagination unleashed provided a certain certainty of the vision that goes far beyond the limitations of people. Recently, Mr. Akio Morita sent me a book, Made in Japan. Mr. Morita, the co-founder of Sony Corporation, unbelievable, brilliant man. The destiny of Sony, just individuals, is the result of such serious decision. This book, Morita discloses one of the toughest and most important decisions he ever made, with a turned down offer of the Bolivia Corporation and purchased 100,000 of the breaking transistor radios at the time when the company was not even moving 10,000 units in a month. The amount of money that was offered him was 10 times what his company was worth at the time. Yet after a deep consideration, he rejected the deal. Why? Simply because Bolivar wanted to put their own name on the radio. He realized why, in short term, saying yes would give this company a huge jump. He would build Bolivar's name instead of Sony's. Bolivar executives could now believe that he turned down their offer. He told them, 50 years from now, my companies now will be as big as yours, and I know that the radio know that the radio I've created is going to help them develop that name. Of course, Morita's partners throughout thought he was crazy. He was able to agree with a sense of certainty and enable them to turn down such an enticing and profitable offer. Vividly envisioned the future of the company, created reference for the non-existent, direction of the focus for the envisioned goals for the clarity, backed up with the absolute act of faith. Today, Sony Corporation is not only the leader of electronic industries, generating $27 billion a year, but also diversified as industry as far-reaching as filmmaking, from Columbia to TriStar Pictures, and music, acquiring CBS Records and Columbia House, renowned for the quality around the world. With faith, you can cling to the vision on faces seeming familiar with the ominous and have given up the first attempt to the electric light bulb, or even after his 100th attempt. Luckily for all of us, he persisted beyond 1,000 attempts. He could have taken each instance as a reference back to the belief that invention was not feasible. Instead, he chose each of the failed attempt to reference the belief that he was getting closer in solution. Remember, it doesn't drive into the past, using the rearview mirror as a guide. You want to learn from your past, now live in it. Focus on things that empower you. Reading is feeding your mind. You're not even limited to your own personal experiences of reference. You can borrow the reference from the other people. Early in my life, I chose the focus on who made it, with those who had succeeded, contributed to impacting people that lives in a major way. And so by reading biographies of successful people, learning regardless of the background conditions, when they held with a sense of certainty, consequently, the contributed successfully, eventually came, I used the reference of my own, forming the core belief that I could truly shape my own destiny. Do you remember the friend of the Captain Gerald Coffey, who was the prisoner of the war in Vietnam for over 7 years? A good deal of time was spent solitary confinement. One thing that he enabled him to preserve the sanity the outside world gave with no reference for joy was to turn out his own richest internal world. As a child, he memorized various poems and stories, which he repeated himself to create with a different environment from one he had to endure and after. You don't have to go into solitary confinement to discover the beauty power of the cultivating bountiful treasure, or chest of memories, imagined references. How can you fill out the chest, explore the wealth of literature, stories, myths, poetry, music, read books, view movies, videotapes, listen to audio tapes, skits, seminars, talk to people, get new ideas. All references have power, and you never know which one could change the entire life. The power of reading a great book that starts thinking with, like the author, the magical moments of the immersive, the forest of the garden with a William Shakespeare, while you're at shipwreck at the Treasure Island. You're Robert Louis Stevenson while you're communing with the nature of the Walden. You're Henry David Thoreau. Certain thinking and feel like that you feel imagination as you would reference become your own. You carry these to you long after you've turned the last page. This power of literature, good play with the music, that is why I constantly would expand with our references. I used to believe that going to see a play was a waste of time. Why? Because the only pair of plays I ever attended were the poorly acted. They would play some of the painful, slow. But one day, Becky and I decided that musically less miserable. I have never seen, read, heard anything of that moved me so deeply. Since there, I've been addicted to great theater. Each time we go to New York City, it's a priority for us to catch a show. Imagination is more important than knowledge. Albert Einstein, one of the finest believers that developed years ago, helped me to enjoy my life's experience with the idea that I had no bad experiences. No matter where I go through life, there is a challenge experience with a pleasurable one. Every experience provides me something of value if I look for it. If I'm pulling just on one idea with the one distinction from an experience that expands me back, which was still in high school, scraping it together monthly anyway I could in order to attend personal development seminars. My friends were amazed. I'd go back for some of the same seminars again and again. Often they ask me, why would you go back to the same program? And inevitably I tell them I understand the power of repetition. Each time I heard something new, because I was different, plus I knew that her something. Again and again, I would eventually condition me to use it. Repetition truly with his mother's skill. Every time I reviewed a program, I have more additional distinctions heard or issues that impacted me different and enabled me to create new references for those new interpretation, new action, new results in my life. Use contrast to put your life in perspective. While some references ennoble you to give your higher vision, others show you a side of life you'd rather not experience. But these sort of references that you help to keep your life in balance, provide a new level of contrast, know how bad things you think of in life. It's good to remember someone else has it worse. At my 9-day mastery programs, I invariably take portion of one day bringing in people who thoroughly physically, emotional hell and hell come up on the top, like W. Mitchell's on the world. My good friend Mikhail Davis, who was in his drunk youth and decided to jump off a bridge but didn't realize the water was only 2 feet deep. He instantly became paralyzed for the next down, then began to share with his own heart how great life is, how happy they are to be alive, but how much they've been able to accomplish. Or bringing my good friend Dax, who was trapped in a fire, but his entire body burned, was blinded later in spite of all the challenges, he became a practicing attorney. Or the theme of the day establishes a simple and profound belief that I have no belief in the contrast brief by individuals who share story with everyone in the room knows how they have no challenge whatsoever of the problems they have with the spouse, the children, grades, the loss of the business, the failure to achieve the goals immediately put in perspective. We can also, with a new reference, motivate ourselves with start with becoming complacent. Why is it true that no matter how bad things are, someone else is going through something worse? It's also true that no matter how well things are going for you, someone else is doing even better. Yes. Just think of when you think of a skill set, you reach highest level, you find someone else who has achieved even greater heights with a beautiful life, the drive for the constantly expand and grow. Power of having new rep for the razor, sand for the shelf of the men's for the weather, its stealth, setting, techniques, create a spiritual leader who has inspired up to use for the others and contributed to give and love and the ceiling of those for exceeding financial, noticing the truly possible. Never forget the first time an architect, hotel magnate, Chris Hempner, Becky and I had the privilege of being among first people to do invited for the Kristen's new home along with the family in Hawaii with a $70 million residency that became beyond verbal description. Front door alone cost $1 million. Great. While the rules say with an incredible waste of money, it was also unbelievably expanding experience of what persons in terms of business economic growth. Suddenly, $4 million castle was put in perspective by ability covers the cost of the front door, marble stair. Where certainly there was room for my life thinking bigger and pushing limited, imagining the unimaginable. But as part of meeting Chris and his wife, Patsy was discovering that they are incredibly warm people. They use the wealth of create an environment that truly inspires them. An uncontrasting reference to one more powerful ways that change our perceptions or our feelings. If I ever start to lose perspective because I feel that I'm working too hard, I think about the man who attended with my seminars years ago. He was a warm, gentle soul, but unfortunately ending up at the wrong place at the wrong time. One day shy of his 45th birthday, he pulled into a gas station where the two men had just been released from prison. But from a brief episode of freedom, these men decided that were comfortable with life on the outside and they hit up a plan to go back to prison. And they killed their very next person who drove into the gas station. Didn't matter who it was, but their age was male, female. They just killed the next human being. When this man drove up, got out of his car, filled his tank, he attacked, brutally beat him to death. No, do you think you have problems left behind with a wife with 4 small children and devastated by the story of the couldn't believe it? How do you come out with a positive means from experience that it seems that they have none? Couldn't have imagined the happening to a member of my family. What would I do? But I kept my answering myself, what could I do to help? I immediately called for this widow and they offered him to help her any way I could. Permanent goal was to make sure that she was trying to find some form of an empowering meaning for herself and her children from the experience. It would have been too easy to use the reference back of the belief that not the more worth living and that humankind is evil to destroy with its tell than everything right and still mowed down by a blade of glass or so I even try. I communicated to this woman the importance of children's sake somehow to find in this experience shred, meaning, power, and soul level. When they asked her what was the experience could mean, she expressed how deep her pain was. More important, one thing was about the experience. There was a positive. When this story was made known in the newspapers, unbelievable amount of love and support and caring poured forth. She recently literally hundreds of letters, other offers support for the people in the community, people on all walks of life. She said, I realized that I believed that people were destructive or that they meant life was unfair. I destroyed myself and my children. So why is it unbelievable painful right now? I know that it must happen for the reason I don't have the way to back up. It's just my faith, the woman found with the courage so to use the faith as an ultimate reference willingness to trust that there must have been a reason. As for is she not aware of it, that freed for her for the most painful experience of life that empowered her. What a powerful woman the luckiest these children are. So I told them kids I wanted to notice all the people how much love they're giving people are really good for the few in the world with the too bad. We're bad, they need to be helped by the daddy. Always believed in good. Now he was gone to better places. He had things to do while he was there. After time was up, he put into her up. Now we take advantage of the while we are here. We have to use Father's death to remind us every day that live life to the fullest as we can think without losing him, because he is always be with us. It's only in the heart that one can see rightly what essentially invisible was essentially invisible to the eye. Antonio de Saint-Exupéry. Could it be possible that it would seem like the worst days in our life are actually most powerful in terms of the lessons we choose to learn from them? Think about one of the worst experiences that you ever had to. As you look back on it, can you think of any ways that which had some kind of positive impact to your life? Maybe the fired, mugged, involved in a car accident, of the experience of the game, new resolve, a new answer that caused you, as a person measure incredible, increase your ability to contribute. I realize that some of the situation may change with the others, finding something good about with this point with the book, but they no longer obviously been stretching your imagination, flexing the muscle of empowerment. You've learned how to manage your state, but to direct the focus by asking better questions. If you were abused as a child, made more sense of the person toward children caused you to make the decision to break with the generational chain of abuse. If you grew up with a respected environment, perhaps it drove you to fight for the freedom of others. If you felt that never were loved enough, you may have now be given the major gift that one must have. The horrible event caused with a new decision, change the direction of life. Therefore, your destiny, perhaps the worst days, have been your best. You may protest, no, Tony, some things in the past have no purpose. I never get over them. I always have pain. You're absolutely right. As long as you hold on to the belief that you will have been taken advantage of the last level, you've lost something that you've never been returned. You will indeed always have that pain. Just remember the loss imaginary. Never everything disappears in the universe, overcomes forms, and something that will still wounds you becomes a meaning that you've linked to it. Maybe do you need to do face say, even though I don't know why it was happening. This happened. I'm willing to trust someday that time is right and I will understand. Limited reference, create limited life. If you want to expand your life, you must expand with the reference and pure birthing ideas, experiences will be part of your life. If consciously seeking that, remember to rarely does a good idea to interpret you. You must actively seek it, and empowering ideas, experiences must be pursed. A universal ideas, experiences, and expanding over the reference we create with a great contrast to which evaluate life and possibility, you for the magnifying with the problems of the portion considering we live in a galaxy containing 700,000 million stars, and realize that we live in a universe that has 700,000 million galaxies. In other words, there's several 100,000 million stars to the suns on our galaxy alone. and all these suns have planets revolving around them as well. Think of the magnitude star of the galaxy makes one turn of the Milky Way axis only once every several hundred million years. When you think about the immensity of your universe, then look at the lifespan of the average human being, generously about 8 years. Does it give you a different perspective? The human lifespan is a speck in time, and people won't worry themselves to death about things that have gone back to pay mortgage, kind of car to drive, how the next business meeting will go. I believe a leaf of grass is not less than a journey work. A leaf of grass is no less than the journey work of the stars. Walt Whitman. Always trying to expand and improve the reference because of the belief in the old computer term GI go. Garbage in, garbage out. Each day that we live, we take in new information, ideas, concepts, experiences, sensations. We need to constantly stand guard with the doors of our mind. Make sure that whatever we allow enter will cause our life to be enriched. That experience with we purse will add the stockpile of possibilities assisting our children to expand and grow. We need to guide them in experience, provided positive references for the future references that will help them from capable of dealing with virtually anything. Simultaneously, we need to teach each of them what watch out for their life. Certain references denigrate our experience of life. As you life a little bit concerned, you will hear music like the Ghetto Boys, one of their recent songs, rap song about cutting a girl's throat, having sex with her corpse. You think that kind of reference repeated again and again, not in the children's mind, but in anybody's mind, would be a little bit destructive. But I'm not saying that someone's going to hear this and then go and do it. I'm just saying that is trash. Does that mean I'm promoting censorship? Absolutely not. I think one of the beauties of our country is the freedom, but I think you as an honest leader, right, have responsibility for the reference impact can have the quality of our lives. Expanding your reference and expanding your life.